Welcome back to another video, guys. Today we're going to be doing a timber tax basis on this property, as well as evaluating about a 35 to 40 acre clear cut. So on this particular property, the client has, I think, total around 400 acres. He's done some timber improvement on some of the rest of the property, but he purchased this 150 acres adjoining several years back. So with that, we're going to be doing a basis establishing the value of the timber at the time of purchase. And then we're also looking at, the timber as a whole should have some more, time to really, there goes a turkey. Should have a few more years till it's really actually mature and ready to be harvested. But, this client is, owning this property specifically for hunting. And so we're going to be doing on this bank back here, probably a 35 acre. Could be a clear cut, could be a really aggressive harvest. Either way, it's going to be cut pretty hard, specifically for bedding. He's having a lot of issues with some of the neighbors having, done some recent harvests, and a lot of the deer wanted to bed on the neighbors. So that's kind of why we're pursuing this at this point. So tag along and I'll kind of show you what we do to get a basis of value on a property this size. So on a property this size, I'm not going through and scaling every single tree. That would take, an absolute insane amount of time. So what we're going to do is on 150 acres, we have a bunch of 1 acre sample plots throughout the property. So I'm using Onyx in this case, where I draw out 1 acre randomly throughout the property to get a good even look at the timber structure on the entire property. Right now we're standing in the middle of one of these 1 acre plots. So I'm going to go through, I'm going to scale every single tree that is usable. And then we also have to backdate this because of him purchasing the property several years ago. So I have to scale the timber backwards and figure in those, growth rates. And so, I'm looking at what would have been valuable at the time of purchasing the property, what would have been usable at the time of purchase. So a tree that might be usable now, may not have been, 5 years ago when he bought the property. So that's what I'm looking at as I do each one of these sample plots. While you could maybe get a little bit out of it now, at the time of buying the property, would not have had any board feet in it. So I'm not going to be able to scale this one, being able to, add it in. So, but a few of these poplar here would have been. So that's it for this first acre here. This one had only just shy of 4,000 feet in this 1 acre pocket here. So that's going to vary quite a bit from pocket to pocket. And then, you can average everything out and get a really good feel for how much timber was on this property. Then we have to backdate it as well on the growth to the time of purchase. So the way a tax basis works is you're essentially establishing the value of the timber at the time of purchase. And so when you buy a property, you are not only buying the land, you are also buying the timber that's on it, if there is any timber. Say on a property like this, there is $60,000 worth of timber on the property at the time of purchase. If you pay $200,000 for the property, you actually only paid $140,000 for the land and $60,000 for the timber. And what that does is, same as if you bought a house, you owned it for a year, sold it a year later for exactly what you paid for it, there would be no gain, so you would pay no tax. In this scenario, when you pay $60,000 for your timber, you can harvest up to that amount without ever, actually having a gain on that timber. So say, in a scenario where you would have a gain is where you buy a property with young timber and, you sit on that for 20 years. Obviously, you have a lot of growth there that, was not realized initially. And so that's the way this works. If you're buying a property with timber already on it, you're paying for that timber up front. And one caveat to that is it lowers your basis on your property. So if you're going to just do a flip, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense because of the fact you're going to end up lowering the basis on your property. You'll pay that tax on the property side anyways. But if you're holding a property for a number of years, it makes a ton of sense to not pay those taxes on the timber up front. And that way you can utilize, the full potential of that timber sale. Obviously, this is not financial advice, seek counsel with your CPA, but this works really well. We've done it for quite a few years here in Ohio. So So we're standing over here on this bench, and back up on the ridge above us here on the neighbors is a destination food source. And so what's happening right now is he's got, the neighbor has some decent cover, but this property in particular on the end of this point and on this ridge system, it's just wide open timber, as you can see behind me here. Now, like I said earlier, really, this should have another 5 to 10 years to really be ready to be harvested. But because he bought the property specifically for hunting, we're going to be doing a 35 or so acre clear cut in the middle of this thing. And basically that's going to be staged then off of that food. You'll have bedding happening down here on this bench and off of this ridge system down to the bottom. And that's going to create a lot of opportunities for them to then come in on the back side of this and hunt this in the mornings during the rut situation or whatever it is. Or he can get, around this side in between, the bedding and the food. So that's going to dramatically change. He's got almost 150 acres on this end that's really not being able to be utilized right now because of the way the drainage and everything, the topography lays. The deer are not staging off of his food on the other end of the farm. They're staging off of the neighbors. So by doing this aggressive cut, initially it's going to be kind of wide open again, but you're going to get that growth in year 2, 3, and 4. It's going to get a lot thicker. It's going to hold a lot of deer, and it should just suck the deer in. And he's experienced this himself because he's owned this farm for quite a few years. And when he did some timber work on his other portion of his property, it drew a lot of deer in. But recently, some of the neighbors have had aggressive cuts done, and he's seen how that pulls the deer off of him. And he's right now sitting, at least this portion of the property is really just a pass-through section. And so by doing a cut like this, it can make a lot of sense to pull more deer in. And it's going to vary, not every area are buyers interested in doing clear cuts. Down here, there happens to be a few guys that do it. They have the equipment to do it. In other areas, may or may not be able to do a clear cut. But in that scenario, you would just do a much more aggressive harvest rather than a clear cut. So ultimately, they, give you the same results. A clear cut, I think, is just a little bit more optimal. So I'm excited for what it does to this property and how it changes the hunt in the future. So a tree like this, initially right here looks pretty good, but if you look up through here, there's a big section of hollow. A lot of that's going to come all the way down into this tree. The butt might be a little bit hollow, and there's just not anything usable in that tree whatsoever. This tree over here, a little bit different. The bottom is going to be hollow, but that should clear up after about 12 foot or so, and the rest of the tree should be usable. So then I scale back accordingly to what is actually going to be usable in that tree versus scaling the entire tree as if it wasn't hollow. Okay guys, that's a wrap. Finished just in time. It's just started raining. So basically, like I said, we went through, did a bunch of sample plots throughout this property. We marked off the lines of where the clear cut's going to be. Got measurements in there as far as the board feet that'll be cut. So yeah, if you guys are looking to get a tax basis done, you can hit me up in my website, fill out the contact me form, and that'll send directly to me and I can respond to you guys that way. So we'll see you guys in the next one.